This is the topic discussion board over Minoan or Mycenaean. Site 1. I would argue that Site 1, as described, is distinctly Minoan in nature. Firstly, their conduits and drains stand out as evidence supporting this because of Minoan ability to keep baths and palaces in living quarters. The Minoans would have been capable of running water and indoor waste disposal if they could do the former. Their art, depicting both men and women as youthful, slender, and graceful, is in line with the Minoan artwork, and in contrast to the more violent art of the Mycenaeans. Their rituals are similar to those practiced by both the Mycenaeans and Minoans, but the practice in such caves or mountaintops is distinctly Minoan in nature. The Mycenaeans practiced in palace centers. Finally, their complexes being centered around a court is Minoan as well. All in all, this site is most likely Minoan. Site 2. I would argue that this site is Mycenaean. The beehive tombs are the same ones described in the book that actually points to a later dated Mycenaean era and tells us that the people buried here had the wealth or influence to be buried in such a way. The small kingdom set up with ties and trading throughout the area also most likely point to being Mycenaean, in that the Mycenaeans also had a similar setup and were influenced by places like Mesopotamia, where small kingdoms with trade routes were quite common. The evidence of polytheistic rituals, such as the sacrificing of food, animals, humans, music, and so on, actually could point to either civilization. However, seeing the other evidence, it would make sense to be Mycenaean. The large complexes centered around a rectangle area is most likely a megaron, not the Minoan center area. This would make it Mycenaean. The shaft graves are also pointing towards Mycenaean culture, and the lack of gold or jewelry could point to a few things. The people were buried in a lower status. The burial was done during the decline of the Mycenaean era, or perhaps the burial was done in an area with little trade, and thus the people did not have much gold to bury. Since there were also beehive tombs, the most likely reason is that the site is from the decline or late era of the Mycenaeans. Lastly, the frescoes on the walls hold more violent pictures such as combat, sieges, and hunting scenes. This is completely Mycenaean in nature and thus points to Site 2 being Mycenaean.